As you guys know, I am building a tiny house, and as it's coming to an end, I figured I should make a video kind of condensing all of the various specs of the tiny house, various tips that I might have into one video so that you can watch that and get a ton of information. To start with, the trailer that my tiny house is on is 8.5 by 16 feet long. 16 feet long seemed like the longest tiny house that was still considered like a house in a full-time live-in place, because I've seen a few that are 12 feet, but you really, I don't know, I feel like any smaller than this would seem like you're living in a box and not really a house, which maybe even 16 feet to some is definitely not enough. But for me, 16 feet seems like the perfect amount of space, and I'm really happy I didn't go for any longer or any shorter because it's just perfect the way it is. So for the roof, I used metal roofing because it is affordable, cheap, and easy to put on. A lot of the decisions that I made were based on how easy it was for me to learn how to do it. And so another thing I did was I used PEX plumbing, which is a plastic heavy-duty plumbing that has been around for a little while now, and it's unbelievably easy to put together, and I needed that because I was not looking forward to doing like some sort of copper plumbing. So yeah, the plumbing was really easy, and I was very happy with PEX. I obviously haven't hooked it up to any sinks yet. Both of my sinks are finally here, so that's exciting. But yeah, there wasn't really any issues so far with the PEX, so I'm really happy that I decided to go with that. Another thing that I did was I was watching someone else's YouTube video, and they used threading rods, which are just pretty much really long rods that you can add nuts to on the top and the bottom. So I have 4 threading rods going from the very top plate all the way through to the bottom of the trailer. So it's a 12-foot threading rod, and I just put that through the wall just to give it extra structural support. A lot of people say you don't need them, but it was more like a thing that made me feel better because, I don't know, this is going to probably move at some point, and that's kind of scary having this structure that I built, and I hope I trust myself enough when that time comes, but it is still nerve-wracking, and I wanted to feel safe traveling with this on the road. Another thing was windows. So windows and doors are pretty expensive, and what I did was I got 3 of my windows from the Restore, Habitat Restore, which I think are all across the nation. They had some awesome windows, and I ended up spending under $100 on all 3 windows. And then I got a door for, I think, $41, and I have cut it all up and made it to fit my door framing. But that saved me a ton of money, being able to find that local Restore where I could just look and find what I needed. And definitely going forward, if I were to build another tiny house, I would look there first before I went anywhere else. Also, I used Roxol insulation, which is a byproduct of the steel industry. It's pretty much steel wool, which is like a fiber. It's supposed to be one of the most environmental and still effective ways, and affordable actually, ways of insulating a house. Fiberglass I didn't really want to do just because of the health reasons. It's not really that healthy. And wool was the other option, but I'm also vegan, and I don't know, I don't have strong views against it, but wool is very, very expensive. And to insulate this whole house with wool, probably I don't even know how much it would have cost, but like one bat like this is like $40. So I don't think that really made sense since I also had to watch on the budget. I've also heard of recycled jean insulation. That's definitely something I would have liked to look into more, but the time frame that I had, I wasn't able to research it enough, so that is something you could definitely use as well. And on the floor, I just use foam board, so it's insulated from the bottom, and I use the cavities already on the trailer to cut this foam board to that size, and then it's just tucked up underneath. So there's a little bit less R value on the floor, but I think it'll be fine. So as I said in probably 2 or 3 other videos, I learned all my techniques from YouTube and watching different YouTube videos. I didn't build it all before, so if you're in my shoes, you definitely can do it, but I would just say expect mistakes because they happen, and when you're open to them, it's much more easy to accept the fact that, you know, you're literally learning how to build as you're building this really big structure. And if you're accepting of yourself and the mistakes, the learning opportunities that you create for yourself, it'll be much easier to build and just be okay with everything that happens. A few tips that I have. One is a carpentry belt would have been very helpful. I was looking at them about midway through this process when it probably would have been really helpful, but I decided not to get one because that just seemed like a unnecessary $40 to spend on a cute little carpentry belt where I could hang my hammer and put my nails, but there were definitely days when I came out to work and I didn't have any pockets, which was really annoying when you were nailing and hammering and screwing. It was a mess some days. So that's something I would definitely look into. Another thing would be a miter saw or circular saw, the table version. So throughout this whole build, the only saws that I had were a circular saw, but it was a hand circular saw. And then I also had a jigsaw, which worked really well as well. But I would have loved to have some table saw where I could angle it at 45 and cut a perfect 45-degree angle. They were about $250, the one that I was looking at, and at the time I wasn't willing to spend that money. And then as it just progressed, it seemed like it was just better off that I kind of dealt with the annoyance of having to use two hand saws. So I would definitely do that and invest in a really nice saw because you'll be using that probably like every day, I would guess. The last thing would be asking for help. So for my whole project, I pretty much didn't ask for help at all, and that was my own choice. It wasn't like nobody would have helped me if I asked, but I kind of like to not get all the credit, but be able to say that, you know, this is pretty much my project and nobody else helped that much. That's just like my own little fetish thing. Something that would have really helped is if in the beginning, right when I was starting all these various projects, like say the bookshelf or the flooring or the shower pan, like specific areas, before I even start, if you ask for help, then it's hard to explain because so once you start a project, you might make mistakes, right? And so you don't necessarily want to ask for help and then tell them to fix your mistakes and then continue on and finish the project. So really what I wish I did was that I designated a few projects to certain people so that I didn't have to feel bad in any way that I might have made a mistake, and that they can feel really good about themselves that they contributed this whole section of the tiny house. So asking for help is also hard. I don't know. I struggled with it, but maybe other people have no problem. But ask for as much help as you can, because there's going to be days when you definitely need extra hands to hold walls up, to hold sheathing up, and it just helps having people there, even for moral support. So that's all I have for this video. If you have more questions, I would gladly film another video. Yeah, I think that's it. I also have a book coming out. I've pretty much written most of it. It's all about my whole process of transitioning